The sun was setting behind the distant hills of the small Yoruba village, casting long shadows across the bustling market. Amid the chatter and bargaining, Io stood at her family's fruit stall, feeling the weight of her mother's sharp words from earlier that day. Her eyes scanned the familiar faces, but her heart was elsewhere, reeling from the sting of her younger brother, Tunde's, urgent phone call. "Io, you've been away too long. Mama's sick and the family's in chaos," he had said, voice strained. She knew there would be more to the story. In the last 5 years, she'd sent every spare naira she made working in Lagos back home. The call for help felt like a slap. Not because of what was said, but because of what was left unsaid. When Io finally returned home, their small compound buzzed with an unusual energy. Her siblings were gathered around the wooden table, their faces masks of uneasy calm. Her mother, usually the pillar of warmth, seemed shrunken in her chair. Io greeted them, her heart beating faster with each passing second. "Tunde," Io said, nodding to her brother. "Why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" Tunde shifted on his feet, avoiding her eyes. "Io, this is hard." Io's heart sank. Something felt terribly wrong. After a tense meal, Io walked outside with Tunde. The evening air was cool, a welcome change from the heat inside. "Tell me everything," Io said, her voice a firm command wrapped in a sister's gentle concern. Tunde hesitated, glancing back at the house. "Mama decided to change her will a few months ago. She put everything in my name." Io's heart stopped. Her mother's land, everything they had worked for, with her money all in Tunde's name. "But why?" Io asked, barely able to contain the shock. "I don't know," Tunde replied, his voice edged with guilt. "She thinks you forgot her." Inside, Io confronted her mother. The room was dim, the oil lamp casting shadows that flickered ominously across the walls. "Mama, is it true about the will?" Io asked. Her mother's eyes met hers, a storm of emotions swirling in the depths. "Io, you left us. You left me. I've been working, sending money home. I've sacrificed everything for this family." Her mother looked away, a conflict Io couldn't understand tightening her features. It was never about the money. Days passed, and whispers filled the village. Some claimed Io had abandoned her family for city life. Others said she cared more for wealth than her own blood. Each word was a thorn, pricking her soul. Io decided to visit the village elder, Baba Ibeji. His wisdom was sought after in times of turmoil. His thatched hut smelled of herbs and thyme, a comforting scent that Io associated with childhood safety. "Baba, they say I forgot my family," Io began, her voice cracking with unspent tears. "But I've been here. I've been doing all I can." Baba Ibeji nodded slowly, his eyes kind but probing. "Io, when your roots are in the soil, it doesn't matter how tall the tree grows. But when those roots are hurt, the tree can fall." Io sat on her mat that night, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying Baba Ibeji's words. The images of her childhood blended with her recent struggles, weaving a tapestry of confusion and pain. She thought of her sacrifices, her dreams, and the silent expectations lurking in her mother's eyes. She remembered Tunde's hand on the will, remembered his hesitation. A cold realization seeped through her bones. Could he have manipulated the situation? For what gain? Each day grew heavier. Io watched as Tunde took control of the family business, the land her mother had promised would one day be hers. She saw the way the village looked at her with a mix of pity and suspicion. The quiet shame that came from being seen as the outsider within her own family ate away at her resolve. At the market, whispers followed her like shadows. She thinks she's too good for us now," a woman snickered, her voice dripping with disdain. Io kept her head high, but inside, she felt her grip slipping. The breaking point came one humid afternoon. The sky was swollen with impending rain. Io stood on the balcony of the family house, looking at Tunde laugh with the local elders. The same elders who once praised her for her hard work were now toasting to his wisdom. Her fists clenched at her sides. She felt the weight of everything crash down on her. Tunde walked in, his smile dropping when he saw her face. Why, Tunde?" Io cut in, her voice as sharp as the edge of a knife. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. He stammered, the facade crumbling. Io stood, determination hardening her resolve. She would not let herself be reduced to a footnote in her own story. She had a plan now, a plan to reclaim her name, her dignity, and what was rightfully hers. I'm leaving, she announced at dinner that night, her voice steady. Leaving? Her mother echoed, surprise and fear mingling in her voice. Yes, Mama. I won't stay here and watch everything I built fall into another's hands. Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. This time, she wouldn't fight for acceptance or love. She would fight for herself. As Io packed her things, Tunde came to her room, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Io, I never wanted this, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. You took everything, Tunde. Even my place in Mama's heart. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a regret that came too late. Please, don't hate me. I only did what I thought was best. Io turned, her face calm, unyielding. You don't understand, do you? It's not about hate. It's about knowing who you can trust. You've shown me that. Carrying her bag, Io stepped into the street, the dusty path ahead both daunting and liberating. She paused at the edge of the compound, glancing at the house that had once been her safe haven. Baba Ibeji's words rang true again, but this time she felt their power. She was the tree, roots deep, but no longer constrained by where she had started. Io. Her mother's voice cut through her thoughts. She stopped but did not turn back, her heart heavy with the love that still lingered. May you find your peace, her mother called out, her voice cracked with emotion and realization. Io walked towards the bus stop, determination in each step. She knew her journey wouldn't be easy, but she had found something within herself that was unbreakable, the truth. Just as she thought she had left the past behind, a familiar voice called her name. Io. It was her childhood friend, Bisi. I heard what happened, she said, rushing to Io's side. I want to help. The words were like a lifeline thrown into the turbulent sea of uncertainty. I don't have much, Bisi continued, her voice earnest, but I have a place for you to stay in Lagos. We can figure things out together. As the bus pulled away, Io watched Tunde's figure grow smaller and smaller until it was just a speck on the horizon. In Bisi's presence, she felt a warmth she'd almost forgotten existed. Io, you're stronger than you know, Bisi assured her. Io nodded, her eyes on the road ahead. She didn't have everything figured out, but she was no longer alone. Back in the village, the air felt different, the kind of silence that accompanies deep loss. Her mother sat on the porch, Tunde beside her, both enveloped in the weight of their decisions. The power had shifted, and now they were left to grapple with what remained. As the first drops of rain hit the dusty ground, Io felt a sense of renewal rippling through her. She had lost much but discovered even more. In the soft patter of the rain against the window, she heard the whispers of a new beginning. On the outskirts of the village, Baba Ibeji watched the unfolding events with a knowing smile. He felt the air change, felt the cycle of the village's old wound begin to heal. To understand the depth of love, people must feel its absence, he mused to himself, watching the bus disappear down the winding road. There would be another chapter for Io, one he sensed was touched by something much greater than any hurt or betrayal. With his gaze fixed on the horizon, Baba Ibeji whispered quietly, "This is only the beginning." The road lay stretched before Io like an unwritten story, each bump and curve holding uncertainty. She sat on the nearly empty bus, watching the village recede into memory, its silent judgment still echoing in her heart. Bisi sat beside her, her comforting presence a balm for Io's turbulent thoughts. "Do you think you'll ever go back?" Bisi asked gently, breaking the silence. Io sighed, the question heavier than she expected. "Maybe one day, when I can face them all without everything hanging over us." "You still love them though, don't you?" Bisi probed, her eyes understanding. "Yes," Io admitted, a small tear escaping her resolve. "Love isn't something you just stop feeling. Even in anger." The bus lumbered onward, and Io's thoughts circled back to the land and the home she had left. She couldn't shake the feeling of incompleteness. There was so much unsaid, so much needing closure. Her thoughts wandered back to Tunde's awkward confession. Was he also trapped by choices he couldn't undo, blinded by a desire to be seen and valued as she was? Io turned to Bisi, her mind racing with possibilities. Bisi, do you think there's hope for things to change back home? For the family? Bisi thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Sometimes change doesn't mean going back to what was. It means finding something new moving forward. As they neared Lagos, Io noticed a pull in her chest, a longing to reconcile the fractured pieces of her life. She thought of Baba Ibeji's words about roots, and how the tree must sometimes connect back to where it started to stand tall. What if leaving the village wasn't the answer? Io wondered aloud. She looked at Bisi, her eyes earnest. What if I need to face Tunde, face Memar, and really deal with this, even if it hurts? Bisi squeezed her hand reassuringly. You'll know what to do when the time comes, Io. Just trust yourself and your faith. Night fell as the bus drove on. In the dim glow of passing streetlights, Io pulled out the small Bible she'd kept tucked in her bag. It had been a gift from Baba Ibeji for her journey to Lagos years ago, a silent companion through trials and triumphs alike. She opened it to a random page, desperate for something to ground her thoughts. Her eyes fell upon a verse she barely remembered, "Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors." The words struck deep, resonating with her tumult in a way she couldn't ignore. Back in the village, Tunde sat by the faintly flickering oil lamp, the house oppressively quiet. The absence of Io was a shadow, lingering in each room, a reminder of what his actions had cost. He remembered their childhood, the trust they once shared, and felt a pang of regret sharper than he'd anticipated. He wrestled with an inner voice, a conviction that surfaced each time he tried to justify his actions. It was for the family, for Memar, he'd told himself repeatedly. But the satisfaction he hoped for did not come. Instead, a gnawing emptiness trailed his every step. Days passed, and with each one, Tunde's guilt grew heavier, pressing down on him like a physical weight. He realized that respect and love subtended the legacy Io strived to preserve, one he knowingly tampered with for fleeting validation. When he spoke to their mother, he found her gaze distant, reflecting the pain of a torn family. "Mama, did I do right by you?" he questioned, his voice almost cracking. His mother regarded him, eyes softened with unshed tears. "I wanted my children close, Tunde, but not like this. Love was never meant to be forced." The words lingered with him, like an unintended melody refusing to fade. As he walked through the market, villagers eyed him with the curiosity reserved for a story left unfinished. Deep inside, Tunde fought the urge to cry out, to ask for an understanding he was yet to grant himself. Seeing Baba Ibeji across the way, Tunde felt an urging to speak, to seek clarity. The old man's understanding nature was known throughout the community. Perhaps, he too could offer the solace he silently yearned for. "Baba," Tunde approached hesitantly, "I need your guidance." Tunde sat before Baba Ibeji, the old man's hut filled with the scent of sage and wisdom. Baba Ibeji listened quietly, his demeanor a serene presence in the midst of Tunde's turmoil. "Baba, I fear I have destroyed something precious. I've taken what wasn't meant for me alone, and it feels wrong." There was silence as Baba Ibeji considered Tunde's words. Finally, the elder spoke. "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Tunde, you sought your worth in possession, but it does not define you." Tunde felt Baba Ibeji's words like a balm, soothing yet revealing the raw truths buried beneath his guilt. "You mean I should fix what I can?" Tunde asked, his voice colored with a budding understanding. "Redemption is not in the ending, but in the choice to change course," Baba Ibeji replied gently. "Reconciliation requires courage, and admitting to Io what you've done is a worthy step." "Can she forgive me?" Tunde asked, his heart heavy with doubt. "Io is more like her name than you know. She is joy, and love is patient in seeking reconciliation," the elder assured him. Gathering his thoughts, Tunde made a decision. That night, he called Io. It was a simple call, but the weight behind it was immense. Words stumbled out, apologies wrapped in raw sincerity. "Io, I've wronged you," he confessed. "I see it now. The land, the will. I took it thinking it was my right, But I only created a divide. Io listened, the line silent in a way that allowed every emotion to resurface. His vulnerability caught her off guard. And Mama, she asked softly. The choice was wrong, hers and mine together. But we wish for your forgiveness, Tunde admitted, his voice filled with earnest sorrow. Io, warmed by Beese's comforting presence, felt something shift within her. Tunde's words were a balm, slowly softening the hardness around her soul. She thought of the scripture she'd read on the bus, the call to forgive and release the heavy burden of her heart. As she knelt that night beside the small bed, her whispered prayer filled the room. Lord, guide me. Show me how to hold this family together, with love that heals. The warmth of faith was like a soft light, filtering through the darkness of conflict. She found herself surrendering her hurt, seeking strength beyond her understanding. With faith as her anchor, Io found a path forward. She called Tunde again, this time not just with words of acknowledgement, but with a promise to come home and face their troubles, together. Tunde, it's time we stop looking back. Let's talk about what truly matters and rebuild what's been lost, she resolved, her voice now steady with grace. Her brother's grateful response was humble, a sign of his changed heart. Thank you, Io, he uttered softly, for reminding me what family means. Weeks later, Io returned to the village, not with a heart seeking revenge, but with one eager to mend. Her mother welcomed her, the embrace a testament to love unbroken by past choices. I'm proud of you, her mother whispered, the sincerity in her voice a deep and restorative balm. In that moment, Io realized she was witnessing something divine, the scars of betrayal slowly weaving into a fabric of forgiveness empowered by grace. Together, Io, Tunde, and their mother sat down for a conversation filled with moments of vulnerability and strength. This wasn't a perfect family, but it was a family restored by the act of choosing love over bitterness. Sometimes, it's not about what was, but what comes next, Baba Ibeji had said, his presence felt even in his absence. His wisdom prevailed as Io and Tunde spoke about plans not for control, but for cooperation. Land can grow many things, but family grows from the heart, Io reminded them, a message she hoped would linger in their spirits. As they gathered for a prayer, the family bound by shared faith rather than shared possessions, Io felt a peace settle over her, deeper than she'd ever known. Deeper than the pain, stronger than the betrayals. Thank you, for everything, she said quietly, more to the presence of God with them than to her family. In their unity, Io discovered that healing arrived not as a swift change but as a gentle, persistent pursuit, led by unwavering love and grace. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Io turned to her brother, softly repeating, "Forgiveness isn't weakness, Tunde. It's our greatest strength."
Thank you so much for listening to this intriguing story. I hope it touched you or taught you something. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. And guys, if you'd like to see a part 2, or you have thoughts on what happened, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.